All right, here we go. Welcome to this edition of the Baseball Forward podcast, a movement committed to passing the beautiful game of baseball on to the next generation of ball players and coaches. I'm your host, Ross Hawley, and I want to thank you for spending some time with us wherever you might be watching or listening from. If this is your first time with us, welcome. For exclusive video clips and outtakes of this and all the other episodes of the Baseball Forward podcast, go give us a follow on social media at BaseballFWD or at Ross Hawley 39. And for more information on joining the Baseball Forward movement, visit us on the World Wide Web at baseballforward.com. This episode of the Baseball Forward podcast is brought to you by Southpaw Hat Company. Don't let the name fool you. Southpaw hats are designed for everyone, not just you funky lefties out there. Check out their latest and greatest at southpawhatco.com and enter BALLFWD at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Today's guest conversation features assistant coach and recruiting coordinator for the University of Oklahoma, Mr. Todd Butler. Here's episode 33 of the Baseball Forward podcast. Coach Todd Butler, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, my man. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Gosh, I am honored to have you on. And I know it's December, middle December right now. You are at the office or on the campus of the University of Oklahoma right now in Norman. So I got to ask you this. It's got to be dead, right? Finals week was last week. Is that right?
That's right. It's dead around here. I'm the only person at the baseball facility this morning. Yeah.
So this time of year, is this kind of your time of the year for downtime, relaxing, hanging with family? What do you do this time of the year, Coach?
Well, this is rest and recover from January to November. I mean, you're at the ballpark every weekend. My wife and I just had our 32nd anniversary on December 5th, and she's a trooper. She's been around baseball ever since we started dating in high school and whatnot. So it's a really fun time for us. The girls, we have two daughters. One graduated from Arkansas. We have a senior at LSU, of all places.
Oh, wow.
LSU. And they'll be up this weekend. And, it's a really nice time for family, and baseball can slow down a little bit. My daughters have been to every SEC Big 12 park across the country over these years, keeping up with whatever team I was coaching with. So this is their time. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I love it. I love hearing it. And I know going home, I'm because, man, coaching at a school like the University of Oklahoma, you guys are in the SEC now. So, I mean, we're talking, well, it's always business at the University of Oklahoma. Oklahoma is known for winning in pretty much everything they do. So when you send your guys home this time of year, Coach, what's their of your players when they go home over holiday break?
Well, at this level, these guys are fully committed to, their strength training that they learn from our strength coach, and, whatever hitting drills or infield drills or throwing drills, pitching drills, getting their arms ready to ramp up for the season in February. But this is a time for a player that I've learned over, 30 something years of coaching, that this is when they can get away from you. They're being told what to do all fall, especially for freshmen, from academics, academic advisors, strength coach, nutritionists, sports psychologists, coaching staff, pitching coach, hitting coach, infield coach, outfield coach, base running coach. So they're being told what to do, for 4 straight months, and being directed where to go and what time to be there. This is a time for them to rest and relax, continue to work on the things they need to work on, but it's a time for them to reflect back on how their fall went. And what happens to a lot of young players, especially freshmen, when they come to a new institution, a new setting, a new coaching staff, is they sometimes forget who they are and what they do. So this is a time for them to reflect back, get back to doing what got them to this level, and staying with that. Because I think what happens to some freshmen is that, as a coach, especially a coach that wants to make changes. I mean, when we recruit a player to the University of Oklahoma, they're already talented enough. We're just trying to make sure that they're getting ready mentally to play in this men's league, the SEC, which we're about to go into. So I've seen more players over decades, when they come back in January, just be more complete about who they are and more mature about what they need to do. So like an immature player will try to please all of the coaches instead of being somewhat stubborn and sticking to what has got them to this level. So it's a really good period for them to relax, continue to work, but to clear their head, understand what they're good at, and get back to, possibly if they had a great fall or not so good of a fall, and, prepare to get ready for January and February.
Oh, wow. Talking to Coach Todd Butler, the University of Oklahoma, here on the Baseball Forward podcast today. Coach, you said something that really resonates with me. Players that kind of get in their own way,
Yeah,
and maybe they're a little bit too coachable, because you're right. I mean, when you say, if the University of Oklahoma is recruiting me, obviously I'm doing something right. So can you expand on that a little bit? Because there's a lot of players out there that are probably going to listen to this and say, what does that mean? How do I become stubborn kind of in my skill set, where I don't want to offend my coach, but how do I kind of toe that line?
well, I mean, the key to hopefully having some wisdom and some knowledge about teaching and analyzing and developing young players is that there is a stubbornness with really great players
Mm,
that they're going to stay with what they do. And a lot of times, if I go back and I'll get back to as you're asking the question you're asking, I've been a hitting guy for all these years of coaching. Usually, the dad was the best hitting coach they've ever had.
mm.
Okay, or a friend of a dad that they really trusted. What happens to a player when they come in is they're trying to impress everyone. And this is probably the biggest nugget I can give. It's not impressing everyone around you, because you cannot please man. I mean, even if you go 4 for 4, then a dad or a coach is going to want you to go 5 for 4. So which is impossible. So, it's just the maturity. Which when I talk to our players, when I get to speak, I talk about healthy, happy. If you're healthy, you're going to be happy, and maturity. Maturity. To be mature, to be able to stay with who you are, what you got you here, not to go make wholesale changes, and to be who you are each and every day. So the maturity part is huge in this Southeastern Conference, or at this elite level of the Power Four or Power Five or whatever you want to call it. But you don't have to play at that level to be a mature player and be a high draft pick. I mean, it's just about being really good at what you do. So there's so many intangibles that go into it. I mean, I'm always trying to recruit good students. And I
Mm.
really mean this. When I was a young coach, was just looking for a great player. Couldn't get them at the level of the schools that I was at. Would get lucky every once in a while. But a young man that's a 3.5 student, that you check with their teachers in high school, their coaches in high school, they're mature, they take care of their business, they're accountable, they're responsible. That player is going to improve quickly, exponentially,
Interesting.
versus the kid with the 2.2 GPA.
Mm.
So, like here at Oklahoma, our incoming group last year was over a 3.5 GPA. So, academics, when people talk about complete players, being a complete professional or an amateur that's trying to get to the big leagues, completeness is all of those things.
Man, I love hearing that, because
It's true.
honestly, I don't know that you think of hearing it when you're talking about these massive institutions, where I think there's a misconception that, or misperception that, hey, they just let anybody in as long as you're a great baller. And that's not the case.
Mm-mm.
I want to swing back to maturity and what you said, because you talk about the maturity of a player understanding who they are. What does it take from your position, man? You've been coaching a long, long time, and one thing that really jumped off the page when you and I met with Coach Schwanke a couple weeks ago was, man, I would have been like, oh, I'd have loved playing for you. You can tell that you're a player centric guy. You can tell that you genuinely care about your players. So, from a maturity standpoint, from coaches, like, what does it take as a mature coach to understand the psyche and how delicate players can be? Because there are players that want to please you and will do whatever you say and try whatever you want to say. So what does it take from a coach's perspective to be mature enough to let the guy, to let him fail and let him kind of figure it out on his own?
Well, this game is really hard. This is a tough game. So, like when I'm talking to a player and I'm giving them information, is if they're saying yes sir, yes sir, yes sir after each sentence I say, they can't hear me.
Wow.
So I want our players to listen. If I'm giving information, I want them to listen to the words that I'm telling them, and it's not going to be a lot. It's going to be very simple. I like to think of myself as simple when it comes to baseball, because simple wins and simple creates good players. But when a player is answering me quickly, that's a sign to me that he's not mature enough yet, because he needs to listen to the words, let them soak in,
Mm.
and then take it whatever he can use to his advantage, or delete it, or delete it. Now, the advantage of getting older as a coach and hopefully becoming wiser is patience and understanding and just paying attention for red flags. For example, calling a recruit, bringing a recruit in. And for some reason, I have a good feel by the time they go back to the airport to fly out whether they're coming or not, just by paying attention and listening. So a good listener becomes a very good player. So as I'm talking to a player and listening to their words also, the maturity, I can kind of measure their maturity level and understand. Now to get a guy to grow fast takes some tough love.
Mm.
And that's bringing a player in. And like Jim Schwanke's a dear friend of mine I've known for 30 years. And he says the other day, he said a picture is worth 1,000 words, especially with hitting, showing a player a picture of his position at contact and a big leaguer and things like that. So the time that you spend with a player over a 3-year period, if you have as a freshman, if you're doing your job, hopefully they're a high draft pick. To give you an example, which you'll enjoy this story, Alec Bohm that we recruited at Wichita State, and we're very fortunate to get him from Ron Cowley Catholic High School in Omaha. After he signed in the 3rd pick in the 1st round, and I knew he was a great hitter, he had to work on his defense. His parents came back to see me a year later, and they told me when they came in to visit, I told him he would play third base, hit 3, 4, or 5 as a freshman. I would never give him the bunt sign. And if he worked and was a hard worker, like they said, he had a chance to be a 1st-round pick. So when they told me, I did not remember. And I said, did I really say that? Because it sounds really good. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, he started at third base the 2nd game. He hit 3, 4, 5 for 3 years, and he never bunted. Wow. And he was a 1st-rounder. So, and I never gave him the bunt sign. So, that's a story there of knowing the player coming in and a player working extremely hard. And I can remember sitting in my office at 10 a.m. He would go to class, get out of class, and at 10:15 he was walking around the field, across the field to go to the batting cage to hit just about every day. And then he'd eat lunch and come back and hit. So, so that was a very mature player that also had a 3.5 or higher GPA that was very good in the classroom and very responsible.
Man, talking with Coach Butler from the University of Oklahoma here on Baseball Forward. When you're out watching guys, because gosh, there's so many guys to watch, I would imagine. When you're out watching guys, what are you looking for when you evaluate players?
It's so funny now. When I was a young coach coaching at Alabama, I wore everything with Alabama I could. Tennis shoes, shirt, hat. I mean, even my name on the back of my shirt, possibly Butler. I wanted everyone to know I coached at Alabama. And what a great time I had there. But now as I go out, I try not to wear anything with Oklahoma. And I try to go down the line and hide. And I'll ask a player on the team, hey, man, what kind of player is he? What's your shortstop? Tell me about your shortstop. And just get some information. And it's surprising to sit in the stands. If you can sit and watch, going to Perfect Game in Atlanta and all the places we go, I can sit in the stands with the parents and I'll find out more information than anyone in the park.
Wow.
Wearing no Oklahoma gear. So I'm looking for a player that wears his hat correctly, that has a belt on, that is well dressed, that is there early, that plays catch. They stretch properly. They're with the team. They play catch properly. They catch the ball properly. They have a routine of what they're doing. When they walk out on deck, they have a presence. When they walk to the plate, they have a presence also. And I have gone to see players that have later gone in the 1st round that didn't get to swing the bat in a game because the team in high school walked them every time. And I had to make a decision and fly home on whether I wanted the player or not. Well, the rankings and all those things are really good. Years ago when I was at Alabama, it was about who you knew because the computers weren't a factor in recruiting. It was about calling everyone in the country and dialing 1-800 AT&T and punch in about 30 numbers and calling a coach. But now you can get on the internet and you can recruit from the computer, but you have to see the player because the biggest key in recruiting is assembling the team where the team complements each other. So I'm 5'9". I can run. I have no power. We need a power guy. We need a power guy here. We need speed here. We need, so you're trying to assemble a team that can get to the College World Series. And that's really hard. It's not recruiting. It's assembling to me. And
Wow.
that's probably the most important way I go about it.
I like that assembling. So,
Team.
in your evaluation process now, man, numbers, just numbers, 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 analytics, everything, right? So I'm
Yeah.
curious how much of the numbers, the analytics go into your evaluation process.
Well, it's big now because everyone talks about bat to ball skills and swing and miss percentage and this, that, and the other. Everyone wants a ready-made player, which they're hard to get to school. Now with the draft being 20 rounds instead of 40, the money's really good for the players to sign. But the analytics, we have people that are paid to do that have been with big league teams that are in our organization that Skip Johnson, our head coach, has brought in. Vince Rinaldi's really good.
Wow.
We have a guy named Mikey Lucario who worked up in the Cape last summer. And these guys are phenomenal. To give you an example, like last year, I knew we were going to the SEC, and that's really why I'm here at Oklahoma. I wanted to know what the average velocity of every Friday starter in the SEC, Saturday, Sunday, and what the closers were left and right-handed, so I could see where we were at going into the SEC with our pitching staff. So analytics are very big. It's huge for team concept and winning concept. It's also very good for recruiting, but sometimes you just have to know that the guy might have some issues, but you can hopefully, like the word we use and you and I talked about, develop the player. Which development to me is probably a little bit different than a lot of coaches. I think the University of Oklahoma develops our student athletes. It's not just our coaching staff, it's the professors, the academic advisor, strength coach, sports science, all the people involved, man, and community service, the fans. It's everything in the SEC. The SEC, University of Oklahoma, they develop those institution, the conference develops our athletes, because when you play in this league and you're playing on the road in front of 10,000 people, you're not allowed to play poorly.
Man, that's a fact. That is a fact.
Yeah.
It's a lonely spot out there if you are playing poorly.
Yes.
Talking with Coach Todd Butler here on the Baseball Forward podcast. Coach, I'm interested in a little bit more about you because, listen, man, what a resume, man. You've been to a lot of really, really cool schools. Been the head coach at Wichita State, McNeese State. Man, you've been around and you've seen a lot. I'm curious, before all the coaching, and I want to say this, I have to. Coach Butler played at University of Oklahoma, and he still holds the single season steals record. Coach, don't let me get this wrong. Is it 46 in a season?
46 out of 50. Yeah. 92.
What the heck?
That's the only claim to fame that I have as a player. I can tell you that. But yeah, I think it's 36 years now. We have a guy named Jason Walk, a center fielder, that he might break it. And we have another guy named Brandon Kane. But I told him, I said, hey, I played in the Big 8, before the Big 12. And I said, you guys are playing in the Southeastern Conference. So I said, good luck to y'all.
Okay. So I got to take this. I got to take this chance. We got to talk about base stealing then. So when you're teaching base stealing, give me some tips, and the audience some tips to consider and to think of about being a good base stealer.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, before the computer, the earpieces with the catchers and the earpiece for the pitcher came into effect, years ago, catchers were given signs, and you could pick up the pitcher's tipping pitches, hold the way they grip it, the way they hold it over the shoulder, behind the back, whether the feet are close or wide for slide step or big leg lift. A guy pulls a fastball foul for a home run, I'm running next pitch because he's not getting the same pitch.
Wow.
He's getting off speed. A couple of picks in a row. The big thing in the SEC, which I tell everyone, is the balk move, and the umpires don't call it. The pitcher will buckle his front knee. It's a great weapon to pick off a very good base runner, and they do not call it most of the time. So, you've got to have a key for a balk move pitcher in the Southeastern Conference. So you can't look at his feet. You'll get picked off. You need to now look at his shoulder. So, it's about intuition. It's about, I used to teach base running at McNeese State, Alabama. We had very good base running back then. Reggie Willits and Russell Raley here, our two coaches, are exceptional at base running and teaching the game here. But back in the day, I told our guys, we want to be like kamikazes. We want to be aggressive, and we want to go into that battleship and wipe it out and steal the bases. So there's so many tendencies. Now it's much harder, in my opinion, for base runners because there's not as many tips because the earpieces and the coaches calling the pitches and whatnot. The only advantage now is like in the big leagues, you can only pick so many times. So now the pitch clock has changed some things also in college baseball. But, the base running is something that, we really recruit speed. And our entire position player list, almost all of them can run. And it'll be interesting to see how we can carry a running game into the SEC because it's extremely tough to run in that league. The only team that really stole a lot of bases last year was Kentucky. And that was kind of their claim to fame last year, having a good season. So, it'll be interesting to see how our running game goes in the SEC. Hopefully, we have success with it.
Awesome. I want to kind of go and I want to talk a little bit about you and your upbringing, man. Life of baseball. You are a baseball lifer, obviously. Man, you've been around it, and I want to know kind of your upbringing in the game and kind of how you fell in love with the game.
Well, parents divorced when I was little. Dad was in Vietnam War. And then I had a stepfather that raised me, and he was a baseball player, left-handed hitter. So when I was 10 years old, from Sulphur, Louisiana, I grew up. I was born in Alexandria, Louisiana, lived in Oakdale till I was 7. We moved to Sulphur because they had good athletics at Sulphur High School, and my dad worked at Citgo Refinery for 30-something years as a machinist.
Wow.
When I was 10 years old, I just remember my nickname was actually, I'm going to say this, Spark Plug. They called me Spark Plug. And I don't, to this day, because I was a little guy and hustled everywhere, and really grew a passion for love of the game when I was 12 years old, or actually 11. We had the Dixie Youth World Series in Sulphur, Louisiana, which is, you had your Florida, Texas, Alabama. The best teams in the state came in and we played, and it was incredible experience. And from there, probably in junior high, to be honest, I played football, ran track, played basketball, and played baseball in the summer. In junior high, I had Buzz Clark, Coach Corville, and then I had a guy named Tommy Thomason. And I had to run the mile in the 800, and I wasn't very fast. And I got tired of running distance and them hollering out the time, 21, 22. And I just kept working on getting faster and faster and faster. That was being a little guy, I knew I had to run. So probably in junior high is where it really started kicking. And this is for young people. Junior high was kind of going into high school is where the separation of the committed players versus the players that wanted to go do other things away from sports that weren't conducive for their success. And so I kind of stayed on my path of, this is what I want to do. I want to be a major league player. I never did reach it, but I had a chance to play minor league baseball. Went to high school, played for Shannon Suarez in football. He was a former Marine. We always won. We were very good. Senior year, got hit in the jaw game too. Played 6 games. Played 6 games with my jaw wired shut.
Oh my gosh!
Played 6 games with my jaw wired shut, and I had cutters to cut the wires. The physical therapist, my coaches had them. I had them. I played because I needed a scholarship, and I thought I was going to get recruited for football. It was wired shut with an offensive lineman face mask.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah, it was awesome. So Friday morning, I would go see Dr. Delahousie, an orthopedic mouth surgeon. He would wire me shut. Saturday morning, I'd meet him at his office, and I could stick my tongue out after the game, and I could get some food in because I had to drink shakes and soup that was grinded up. And so he'd wire me shut, and I'd get ready for the next week. Played with it wired shut.
Oh, my gosh.
My mom lost her mind. My stepdad said play, and we played. So, so that's my background. I think toughness came from that. If you drive through Sulphur, Louisiana on Interstate 10, there's a big crosswalk that goes from the south side of the interstate to the north, and the kids walk across for the elementary school. My track coach in high school, 3 days a week, we would do sprints downhill 60 yards. So if I ran a 7 flat 60, I would run a 6.5. So I knocked off 5 tenths.
Holy bucket.
So I went down from a 4.9 to a 4.4, 4.3s, a 6.9 to 6.3, 6.4. So that crosswalk on I-10, I've told so many players from my high school back where I'm from, sprint that thing. I never see anybody running. So if kids want to know how to get faster, run downhill, run uphill, and sprint. sprint 3 times a week. So I actually took it to heart, and I had a great track coach, and that's what helped me catapult myself to be able to play at University of Oklahoma. Yeah.
Man, oh man,
Pretty
that
cool.
is really good stuff. We're talking with Todd Butler, University of Oklahoma, here today on the Baseball Forward podcast. When you look back at just like, I'm going to say playing before coaching, but when you look back at your playing career, what are you most proud of? Like what stands out to you? Like, man, I look back, because I know for a lot of guys, it's hard to move on when the playing career is over. It's kind of bitter, you're like, you don't really know how to move on. So when you look back, what are you most proud of as a player?
Well, just playing and having fun, having joy for the game. Back then no one really knew your batting averages. I mean, we didn't, it wasn't in the paper or on the internet, or you didn't have people after you like the tweets and the negative things that go on in the game today. So we might have had just a little bit more joy because there might not have been as much pressure.
Yeah.
The only pressure was the pressure you placed upon yourself. To answer that question on the flip side, I wish I would have lifted weights more earlier. I mean, I wish I would have lifted weights. I did not start lifting weights until I was in college. And, 10 pounds on a player that's, my size is a lot of strength, 20 pounds on a big man. So, I think 10 pounds a year is a very good structure for a high school player to gain weight. And then your body's going to max to its level, and you want to maintain that. But I think lifting weights, I did the sprinting, I did the hitting, the fielding, all the other things, but I think I should have spent more time in a weight room. And back then, I don't know that was that important. Because weights were supposed to be bad for baseball players. So the big difference in today's players and back when I played, these guys are so physical. They're so intelligent. They're extremely well taught. All they have to do is, go to their phone and look at a big league hitter and watch contact and the movements and everything. Whereas when I grew up, you had to get up and go to an encyclopedia, or to see something you want, so it's a lot easier. These guys are so brilliant. What's funny about coaching really good players in today's world is, a really good player like Easton Carmichael, our catcher, who's an All-American, who's hopefully going to be a high pick for us. Hey, when he asks me a question, because he's so talented and mature with his hitting, I have to think before I answer a question with him. So, when they say iron sharpens iron, great players make great coaches, and great coaches make great players. And the development of people, just because you're good right now doesn't mean that you can't be great later. So just the constant fight and monotony of baseball, baseball hitting is monotonous. I mean, I'm doing the same thing. If I'm a good player, I'm doing the same routine, and I'm not letting some guy off the street tell me otherwise.
Wow. Coach Todd Butler here, University of Oklahoma. Coach, relationships in baseball. When I say relationships to you, what do relationships mean? How important are relationships to you?
It's probably the biggest thing of all for me. You can tell in my voice, you've kind of changed my demeanor here. You recruit a guy for the 8th grade, or you see a kid in the 8th or 9th grade, and then you get to recruit them, and then they get to school, and, you get to demand more as a coach. If you've known the family for a period of time, you get to bring him in the office and tell him, what's important, what needs to be done. And I think it's a little bit stronger voice for them. When they leave and they get to pro ball, you're going to hear from them for a little while till they become big leaguers. And then once they become big leaguers, they're grown men with their own business and their own struggles and positives and negatives. So you kind of respect that when they get to the big leagues. But the big thing for me is that, the relationship part. I mean, in college athletics, these guys are playing the game to get an education, so they can be close to it as a junior. So they have 1 year left or 2 semesters. And then, the time that they're spending to work to get better each and every day is unbelievable. And that relationship, I think, in the batting cages or on the baseball field or in the weight room or, the nutritionist, the relationship that I have, I want to spend a lot of time with them. And to be honest with you, 20 hours a week, to me, that's not enough time.
Yeah.
Not for these guys that are getting paid, hopefully, $1 million or more.
That's right.
become big leaguers. I mean, these guys have a chance to be special if they stay healthy and stay committed and stay on the right path. So I don't think there's enough time that we get with these guys because this is the highest level other than becoming a big leaguer or minor leaguer.
Man, spoken like a true coach that cares about his guys. Baseball forward, our MO is elevating the next generation. There's so much out there just to consume and digest on the game of baseball and life in general. When I say elevating the next generation and advice that you have to young guys coming up, what comes to mind, Coach?
Joy.
Mm.
Joy to play. I mean, joy to play. Everybody says enjoy, embrace the grind. And, just to give you an idea for my life as a coach of 30 something years, this is not a job. This is not a job to me. This is just what I do. And I truly love it. I don't like laziness at all. I can't stand it. And I don't like hidden agendas. I like people that are pretty precise and to the point, and they have a goal in mind and they want to reach it, and let's go to work. But the joy to play, you do not have to have 4 hits and 4 at bats. It's all about how you present yourself. And it's hard to get to everybody wants to be at this level, right? The power 4, power 5, whatever it is. Hey, I went to McNeese State out of high school. And McNeese State, when everything has gone bad in my life, McNeese State has risen up for me as a player, assistant coach, head coach, assistant AD. That's my hometown, has always been great for me. So your path, you never know what path you're going to be on. And as a player, just play and don't worry about who's in the stands and don't talk about yourself. Just enjoy the game. The great players I've been with, that you never hear them speak of themselves, that they played on Team USA or they played in the Cape or they went 4 for 4 off of some pitcher. Hey, they just enjoy the process of it. And it's not a job to them. It's just what they do. And they're fortunate to do it.
I hear humility in that response, and I see and I feel humility in you and in my conversations with you. So I have to ask you about humility and how important humility is to you just in general.
Well, I mean, let's think about it. I was fired twice in 10 months. Wichita State, I was fired in 2019. The year before, we had 11 guys drafted, second most in the country, but we didn't go to a regional.
Wow.
And it still, haunts me to this day because we had Bohm and Janista and we had some really Cody Hoyer. We had really good players at Wichita State, and we didn't get it done. So I was fired. So I went to Missouri for 10 months, put together a top 25 recruiting class, first time in 10 years. COVID hit. COVID hit. I get a phone call from the head coach, and he says, "I'm letting you go." I said, "Call me back." He said, "No, I'm letting you go." I said, "I'm getting fired." So I had my teeth kicked in. So I packed my bags. Me and my daughters, they broke down, and my wife, we sold our house in 2 days. God willing, somehow we got lucky, moved back to Louisiana. I went back to where it all began, McNeese State. And I got lucky to become an assistant AD. From there, I came to the University of Oklahoma. But I always aspired to coach at Oklahoma. I always wanted to come back here. And, when you talk about the circle of life that I've been fortunate to be as a coach and a human being, where I started my career, McNeese State in Oklahoma, I keep coming back.
Wow.
So it has been awesome.
Yeah.
So when I hear people complain and say, I want to go to a big school and I don't want to go to that school, it's not as big, go play. Because the transfer portal and all the things that you have now, from McNeese State, I played there 2 years as a shortstop, had a lot to learn, had a chance to go to Texas, Wichita State, of all places, in Oklahoma, and I chose Oklahoma. So, your path, don't worry about your path. Go play and have joy for it, and people will notice. And it's fun, man. This stuff is awesome. It's right. Awesome. So where I'm at as a player, as a coach right now, hey, I'm winning every day.
That's right.
I'm winning every day. So, and the only joy that I really have is being with our players. It really, truly, that's the joy, is being with a player, watching the good player become great, watching the great player continue to excel and be able to handle his own inner positives and negatives, and just preparing guys to be successful. Because now I've coached long enough that players have children, the parents of those players have grandchildren, and it's awesome that I made an impact for that guy, bringing a guy from possibly Kentucky to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and now he lives in Fayetteville with a family, and his family
That's
lives
awesome.
there. So yeah, I mean, so this is a fun time. Now the hard thing is, do I have a few more minutes? Am I good?
Oh, hey, we got plenty of time, Coach. Keep going.
The tough thing is when you're recruiting a player and you know it's a great fit for the player to come to your university, to be with your head coach or your coaching staff and your resources at the university, and they can't hear you because they're already locked into another school. And at times I know whether that situation will be good or not. So I have to keep my mouth shut, take the high road, tell them congratulations for going to that school. And then sometimes, a year later you look up and that kid's not there, especially with the portal stuff. So, it's hard to explain to someone that can't hear you. And when you want to help some people and they don't trust you because they don't know you. And it's also tough nowadays for, I'm going to say myself, because now we're going from 40 to 34. Supposedly, and the rule still has not passed, correct? I haven't heard of it yet. So this is another tough task that we have to deal with, and it's not fun. So
golly, that would be, I can't imagine being a coach knowing that 6 guys automatically gotta be getting the pink slip, man.
And they're good player. They're all good players. That's why they're here. So that's the hard part. But when you're talking about humility, I mean, baseball is so humbling.
Gosh,
I mean,
it is.
It's not like football. That's why I loved football. I mean, you could just go hit someone, and you could relieve yourself, or, try to run someone over, and you could release that energy. In baseball, you have to contain it, and you have to protect it. You can't let that anger or, frustration, you can't let it out. You have to hold on to those things. So it's a very humbling game. It's extremely difficult. At this level in the SEC, it is unbelievable. I mean, you're holding your breath till the 9th inning in the final out to get out of that park.
You said earlier in this conversation, you said you wanted some data on the Friday night guys and the average velocities of the closers. So I'm curious, what is that? What are those average velocities?
Hey, I can tell you they're right there. 92. Hold on.
Okay, I want to hear it. Yep.
Friday night is 92.6. Saturday is 92.9. Sunday is 91.5. And the closers are 92.1. That's over the whole league. Now, I really think this year in the SEC, I think those numbers are going to be 94. Probably. Wow. Is what I'm guessing. Because everything I'm hearing across the country or the SEC in the Southeast is, LSU has arms. Arkansas here, they have really good arms. I know that we have good arms.
That's right.
We're excited about our pitching staff. So, the league is just so competitive, and it's so much fun. I mean, it is so much fun.
I cannot wait for this spring. I was excited as a fan to see how this football season would shake out, and it was a lot of fun. I'm more excited about watching the spring baseball season because I feel like, boy, the SEC is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
It's going to be incredible. The one thing that kind of gives me a little, I can take a deep breath and relax a little bit, is you can only hit 9 and you can only pitch 1. For so many innings. So I remember we faced Vanderbilt one year, and David Price pitched. And we were at Arkansas, and we struck out 17 times in Nashville in a 9-inning game. And Price was throwing so good, I just was going, I've never seen a guy this good in my life. Wow. And after the game, we went down the line, and I got the hitters up, and I said, hey, here's the deal. Who cares? That's the best left-handed pitcher I've ever seen. He's a major league bona fide all-star. Let's beat their butts the next 2 games. And we actually did, but I could not believe how good Price was. I'd never seen anything like him. So, but, Price turned down money to go to school. I thought he was going to sign. I was going, there's no way he's going to go to Vanderbilt. Well, he did, and a great big leaguer, plus a wonderful person. Hey, the SEC's filled with guys like that now. I mean, maybe not as good as Price, but there's a lot of good players out there. Man. The one thing that I have learned in all these years and this is something for people across the country that hopefully can listen to it. First time I went to the area codes, I'm going, man, there can't be many. This guy's from New Hampshire. I mean, there's no baseball players
Yeah,
up there.
good point.
Hey, sure enough, he was a dude. High draft pick sign. And then I'm going, Washington, the state of Washington. I'm from Louisiana. I've never been out of the bayou right at that time. So I go, Washington has good players. They had everybody. Tua Asasopo was there.
Yep.
Holy cow! Washington had the best looking players at the area codes.
Wow.
So players come from everywhere. It doesn't make a difference if it's hot weather, cold weather, snow, rain. Hey, great players come from all over the country, and Hawaii also, and Alaska. And so it doesn't make a difference where you're from. And as a young player, if you're in one of the cold weather states, it doesn't matter. Get to work. Yeah,
that's right, man. That's good stuff. I want to know this. There are a lot of parents out there that are well-meaning and they want really good things for their kids. Okay. But sometimes it can be a little bit too much. They don't really know how to help their kids as they're coming up in the game. So I want to speak to the parents out there, and I want your advice to parents that have the young up and comers. Like, what advice do you have for parents of players coming up in baseball today?
The parent, and take this in the right way. Hopefully, I'm going to say this properly. The parent that says, I don't want to be that parent.
Mm-hmm.
I call him the coach.
Yep.
Don't be that parent. Let your son battle his battles. Challenge your son to go through the coach. Make the player, your son, handle and be accountable for his issues that are going on. The stuff about politics or the reason why my son's not playing does not work. That's a crutch. I'm not a fan of the the politics of the team. Challenge your son. Just like my oldest daughter came home one time and said, the teacher, I said, no. If the teacher has not touched you or done something incorrect, right, as a person, I said, I don't care what the teacher tells you. Whatever the teacher tells you that is proper and good, you do it. The teacher's demanding from you, and you need to handle this demand. Mm-hmm. So the more bridges a student athlete or a student coming up handles, the more rough water they cross, the better they're going to be in the end.
Wow.
Because any time.
Wow.
Let me just explain this about myself. I got fired twice in 10 months. Had to go. I went to be an assistant AD at McNeese State, which I absolutely loved, and it was fantastic. I get a break to come back and coach. Hey, man, I want two things to happen. I want to make an impact, and I want to win a national championship. So those are my goals. Anything that gets in my way is not good, because I'm going to try to knock it down at this point. I don't have a lot of time left to coach, right? I'm not an early coach. I'm getting towards the end. But for these parents, it's about demand. It's about also giving love to your player when they have a poor game and getting back to work with them and putting them in a position to be successful with people that know what they're doing, that you can trust. It'd be like my daughter's playing tennis. I don't know tennis. Well, I'm going to try to get my daughters to be with somebody that teaches tennis well, so, but sticking with the player and demanding, I think sometimes, the negative reinforcement of challenging your son and going, hey, maybe you're not good enough. That'll get them going.
How do you know? Because, man, how do you know as a parent? How do you know who to trust with your kid? Like, well, if I'm out looking for a select organization, let's just speak specifically on baseball, but I'm out looking for a select organization. They always say, hey, put your kids around the right guys. I get that. But like, what does that look like to you? What does that mean? How do I know? How do I vet appropriately?
Well, that's a good question. It's really tough to answer that, but I look at it this way. Would I want to do business with this coach if I was going into business? Would I want this coach to come to my house and eat?
Wow.
That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Because I deal with a lot of stuff, Liam. You've got advisors, you've got the coach at the school, you got the coach in the summer, you've got so many things going on with these kids and so many phone calls they get that it's really hard on the parents. They're having to deal with these phone calls once the phone numbers get out, which is tough on the kids, especially these high profile players. a pitcher, man, I'm going to really try to protect that kid's arm and not let him go to every event, because I'll see kids throw, on a Tuesday, and here they are throwing on a Saturday, and then the next week they're throwing on a Wednesday, and you're just following them around, and they're still throwing, 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 innings. Next thing you know, they break down.
Yep.
Because they're throwing so hard and they're just not physically strong enough to handle the torque and whatnot. So, your question about, I probably would want to have my son with another teammate that we're comfortable with, that we know very well, so they can work together and have someone to, lean on each other and things like that. So, but most of the people out here in college baseball and summer baseball are really good. It's just changed a lot. And yet, like for me, I have to travel a lot. I think all the time, every weekend we're gone, either at a ballpark or watching someone play. So,
talking with Coach Todd Butler here on the Baseball Forward podcast. 2 more questions for you, Coach.
Okay.
I want to know the greatest influences on your baseball career up to this point.
Oh man, my mom was one.
Wow.
My mom, when I came to OU, she worked at a doctor's office answering the phone as a receptionist, and she sent me money so I could get by it, each week or month. And I had a stepfather who was pretty tough on me, so he didn't send me any money. So my mom took care of me, and that was good. And also in junior high, the coaches that I had that threw the football to me, that when we played football, we played basketball, ran track. Those coaches, they would play quarterback at recess, and I'd play receiver. Okay. And then we'd play basketball during basketball season. Now, they also coached me in football, coached me in basketball, coached me in track. So I was with those coaches every day.
Wow.
And those guys in junior high, because I was little, they made me believe that I could play in high school. That was my next thing. I wasn't thinking about going to college. I just wanted to get to high school and be able to get on the football field or the basketball court. So then when I got to high school, Coach Suarez, our football coach, saw me shooting basketball, 9th grade going into the 10th grade. We went to school at the high school, 10th, 11th, and 12th. I'm shooting basketball, and he told me to go play golf. My football coach in high school, he said, you need to go play golf because you're too little and you'll never play football for me. So started for him as a junior, started for him as a senior. So I beat that one. I kind of beat it down. And he said, you'll never play college athletics. So I got that break. I had to go around. Oh, yeah. So, everybody's got a story, man. I watched The Last Dance yesterday with my wife.
I did too. Yeah.
With my wife. And she goes, I said, oh, yeah, he's a machine. There's nobody like Michael Jordan, and that dude was incredible.
Yep.
But everyone has a story. So like today, Ross, I've never been able to really tell my story. I played 6 games with a broken jaw. I'm excited about that. That's crazy. Was told I wasn't going to play college athletics. Hey, we got lucky and got a break, So, and then I get to coach all these years. So I'm very fulfilled.
Wow.
I'm fulfilled, and I just want to finish right now. I want my career. I want to be an impact more so than ever. And that's about the relationships you're talking about. And then the other thing on the greedy side, I want to go to Omaha with my 3rd SEC team.
Dang.
So that's where I'm at.
All right. So I have to ask, because, oh my goodness, you said the magic word, and this is going to be my last question for you, but there's so many kids out there, man. I like, it gives me goosebumps when you said the word Omaha.
Yeah.
What is it like to be in Omaha at the College World Series out on that field?
First time I went was 97. Schwanke, Coach Schwanke, Jim, one of my dear friends, was at LSU, and they beat us for the national championship. So I think I was 27 or 28 years old. So I'm going, man, I'm going to be back. I'm going to win this thing. Well, since then I've finished 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I haven't won it, right? So I've never been in that championship game again. So the last time I went was 2012, and then that was at Arkansas. So I would wake up, and before the sun would come up, I'd go to the hotel downstairs, get me a cup of coffee, put my headphones in, go through the left field line of Ameritrade, and the people that were working there would let me in, and I would walk the warning track, listening to music, having my quiet time and drinking coffee. So the last time I went, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we got beat by South Carolina to play for the national championship. So it's the funnest thing. It's such a joy to be there. And when the final out's made in a super regional, and you know you're going to the World Series, it's like a relief that you can look back and go, all the work paid off.
Mm.
And so once you get done with Omaha, whether you win it or not, the next year you're so fueled to get back as a coach and as a player. I mean, you'll walk on hot coals to get there again.
Oh,
So that's how much joy it is. It's also, as a coach, if you don't win the national championship and you're in the dugout and the other team's going on, or they win it, you know that you have to get on the road recruiting, in about
yeah.
48 hours. So it's
Yep.
depressing. It's depressing also.
Coach Todd Butler. Wow. What, you know what? I'll say it. You said at the beginning, what a joy of a conversation this was, man. Your energy, man. I love talking to you because I can tell you love people. You love the game of baseball. Here's what I want you to do for us. Give us a last minute, whatever you want to say to the audience as you take it out. And then what I will do is I will take us out when you're done with finishing up to the audience.
Well, I'm thankful. I appreciate. This is my first podcast I've ever done.
What?
How about that? I
No,
thought
hey,
you did. How about that?
wow.
You're
Okay.
the record holder. You're the record holder.
All right. We're the standard now.
It's as when you're a young coach, you're a little bit nervous to talk about yourself, and you're just trying to survive and do your job. As an older coach now, it's what you said. What am I doing to hopefully give something back to someone that can help them? So my words for a young player and their families have joy to play the game every day. Be thankful that you're healthy. Try to keep growing and maturing to be complete in everything that you're doing. You will be noticed. The timing is everything. Look at me for an example. I wanted to be a head coach at a Power 5 school. I never got it, so it never happened for me. So as a player that wants to, these young kids want to be a Power 5 player. Hopefully your dream will come true. Mine did not. So I'm thankful to be an assistant where I'm at. The other thing is this, the old thing that you can read in books, be where your feet are.
That's right.
Be where you're at, and understand this. It's not always greener on the other side. And if you have people that are caring about you as a person, trying to develop you with a relationship that and demanding from that student or that player or that student athlete, as a parent, if they're demanding, you should be happy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Coach Todd Butler, University of Oklahoma, you are the man. I want to say thank you again to Coach Butler for joining us on the show, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Baseball Forward podcast. I'm your host, Ross Hawley, and I'll see you next time.